The method I'm going to show you is using a reed rather than using a rattle. It's called pre-slaying or pre-reeding. If your loom has an overhead beater, this method works much better than using a rattle. I use it on jack looms too, just as a personal preference. When I wound this warp, I wound the warp using an endless warp, which means that I have a loop in my cross that has no loose ends. If you put your cross at the opposite end from where you start your warp, you won't have any loose ends, and it makes it much, much easier to get it on the back beam if you don't have any threads that are going to get away from you and you have to worry about tying on separate. So I find the loop and I slip my lee stick through the loop, and then I go above the cross and I find the other loop and I slip the second lee stick through that loop. Now I take an extra level of caution and I take a string from one end of my lee stick to the other and tie it off. And I do this on both lee sticks, and then I tie my lee sticks together. I'm going to bundle everything up when I get done with this process and take it to the loom. So if I do this, this extra tie on there, it's just going to help to make sure that I don't lose my cross. Now here I'm tying the lee sticks together, and once I get this done, then and only then can I start to remove the ties from the warp chains. I use bow knots. I do not use any hard knots. I make my choke ties quite tight. I find that it holds my warp better. And I don't like scissors anywhere near my warp because I can see, I just cut it. I know I would. I put a heavy book on the back of the warp to hold it down. I support my reed in reed holders, or in this case, I use C-clamps. I measure, I know I want it 24 inches, so I go 12 inches on each side of center. I separate out my bouts of warp, and then I calculate how many of these bouts I need per inch in my 6-dent reed to make 20 ends per inch for what I want. I pull the loops through, trying to maintain the loop from the lee stick to my arm. Once I get a bunch of these threaded, then I slip them on to the lee stick by just bringing the lee stick up to my hand and pulling it through. It goes rather fast. That's half of them done. We're going to skip ahead to look at all of them done here. Now I'm ready to secure this stick that's in front of the reed and make sure that my width is right. And then I look at each of the bouts and make sure that the loop goes all the way back to that first lee stick behind the reed. And it looks like they do. Then I take a string and I go from one end of the lee stick to the other. This is a must. You don't want to lose this loop, because the loops would fall out of the reed and you have to start the whole process over. I lay the reed down, take the weight off of the warp chain, bring the lee sticks up to the reed, bundle up my warp chains on top, and there it is. I'm ready to go to the loom and do the next process of beaming on.